Hello everybody! This video is going to be about the companions that I find are going to be the most useful in Mod 16. But before I start, I just want to do a quick little announcement thing. I have opened up my Discord, so if the link to join it is in the description, or if you're too lazy to look for it, you can just type discord.io/silvery in your address bar and it will take you right to my little house. Make sure you send me a cat picture, because I like cats. Okay, back to the video. These companions are in no particular order, so I'm not doing a ranking of, like, top 10 or whatever. I have, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12 companions that I'm going to cover today. But keep in mind that these can just change out of the blue by the next patch. There is only one patch left before Mod 16 goes live, though. So I'm going to go ahead and say that the majority of these are in their final state. I'm going to start off with a couple of familiar ones, just so that you're not, like, super out of your element or whatever. Just in case Mod 16 didn't already put you super out of your element. We're going to start off with the Siege Master, and I'm going to be referring to all of these bonuses at their legendary rank, so the actual effects that you'll get from lower ranks are probably going to be lower than this. But at Legendary, the Siege Master gives you 4% at will power, which is doubled in the Stronghold to 8%. So that basically means that your at-wills are going to have 4% more power attached to them whenever you use them. And since you're going to be using your at-wills a lot in Mod 16, I think that one's going to be pretty useful. Next up is the Rust Monster. At Legendary, it has a 10% chance to reduce the enemy's armor penetration by 7,500 whenever you use an encounter, and this stacks up to 3 times. I mean, that sounds really good, but enemies only have 10k armor penetration now, so I get the feeling this one is going to be changed before it goes live. If it doesn't, then they're basically always going to have no armor penetration, assuming that you get it to proc 3 times. Well, more than once, actually. Because right now, it's just removing 75% of their armor penetration, and that's pretty significant. Third on our list is the Black Dragon Ion Stone. This is an augment, but its stat bonus is 8,000 crit at Legendary. And that's a lot, so I thought it was worth mentioning. Crit's not very difficult to get. In fact, I have too much on most of my characters, but in case you are in a crit drought, that is a good way to go. I do not know how much these cost on the auction house, by the way. I did not look that up. Number 4 is the Energon. This one is particularly useful for tanks, but it can be used for pretty much every class, really. At Legendary, it gives you 32,000 bonus hit points, and that is a pretty significant amount, the same amount as a fully maxed out HP guild boon. And they are pretty cheap. If you're not familiar with tanks, a tank's shield is 50% of their max HP, so you're going to want to max HP if you play tank so that you can block as much damage as possible. Moving on. Adolescent Deep Crow. If you're a cleric, you're very familiar with this pet, and in Mod 16 it gives you 8,000 power. This is not going to be particularly useful to you if you don't have your armor penetration capped, or if you're not working on combat advantage or crit or anything like that. But if you do have your stats pretty much where you want them, the extra 8,000 power could do you a big difference. I can speak English. Next up is a companion that I'm actually not sure how to pronounce, and there's 2 forms of it. I'm going to go ahead and take a stab at it and say that it's pronounced Farah. P-H-O-E-R-A. There's the orange version, and then there's the Mystic Farah, which is the purple version that's only available through special promotions or something. But anyway, the actual ability of this companion is not really any good. The only reason I mention it is because it has constant AoE damage after rank 30 or so. And this is important because companion damage was nerfed pretty heavily recently. I don't know if it's going to be brought back at all, but your companions aren't going to be doing a whole lot of damage anymore. The Farah, though, has pretty much constant damage output, whereas other companions only attack once every couple of seconds. So, it was worth mentioning. The Dread Warrior. This is one that's pretty much only going to be useful for tanks, and even then, only if you're having trouble maintaining threat. What this ability does is it gives you a 10% chance whenever you take damage to give you a 10% bonus threat generation for 10 seconds. So like I said, that's not very useful for a healer or a DPS because you're gonna not want to have threat. But if you are having issues, maybe you could look into the Dread Warrior for your tank. And next, we have the Stalwart Golden Lion. This is one that a lot of people like the look of, and I'm happy to tell you that it's actually kinda useful. Your lion has a 50% chance every time that it uses a power to give you a stack of something that I forget the name of, but that something gives you 10% bonus damage as radiant damage for 10 seconds. And remember, this is at legendary quality. But 10% bonus damage is a lot of damage, especially considering that the sources of buffs are very, very limited in Mod 16. And now we have the Jagged Dancing Blade. This is a debuff pet, and like I said like 5 seconds ago, the sources of debuffs and buffs are very limited in Mod 16, so this is one to take a look at. The Jagged Dancing Blade has a 10% chance whenever you use an encounter to lower the enemy's defense by 8,000. And that is quite a large number. 3 more to go. This video is pretty short, I apologize. Or maybe I don't apologize, I don't know. Next is a companion called the Blacksmith, and most of you probably don't even know what it is because it's not very useful in Mod 15. But the only reason I'm mentioning this is because it can be somewhat decent for tanks, especially when you're fighting bosses. The reason for that is because the Blacksmith gives you a 10% chance to reflect 6% of the damage that you take. That doesn't seem like a whole lot, but then if you reflect to the same target 4 times in a row, you reflect 3 times the damage that you take. So let's just say, for example, that you're fighting a boss and this procs 4 times. And then you get hit for like 90k or something. You're gonna do whatever 90 times 4 is damage to the boss. Oh, sorry, times 3. You're gonna do whatever 90 times 3 is damage to the boss. So like 270,000 damage? And that's a lot considering if you crit in Mod 16, your attacks are very rarely gonna be over 150k. So yeah. And next, the Wandering Scarecrow. This is a blue companion that is really easy to get, especially during the Masquerade of Liars event. And as far as I know, unless it's changed recently, it's pretty cheap. In Mod 16, at legendary quality, you will get 8,000 armor penetration and 2,000 defense. 8,000 armor penetration is quite a lot. The cap is around 60,000, so having almost 1/6 of that from one source is going to be pretty significant. And lastly is the Netherese Arcanist, or Arcanist. There we go with the words I can't pronounce again. This companion actually isn't any different than in Mod 15, but considering it is bonus damage, and like I said, like 3 times so far, the buff chances, or buff choices, or whatever you want to call them, the buff opportunities are not very frequent. And this gives you 5% bonus damage versus enemies that are not facing you. So obviously this would not be very useful for a tank at all. But if you're a DPS, you probably should almost never have aggro, so that's a nice flat 5% damage buff. Alright guys, that's it for me. Tell me in the comments, do you agree with these companions? Do you think they're useful at all? Do you think there are some other companions that are more useful than these that I probably should have talked about but just didn't see or forgot about or something? If you don't feel like telling me any of that, join my Discord and say hi. I hope you enjoyed staring at my cleric for like 10 minutes. Have a good day. Bye.